This audio is part 2. The selling of the filterable virus is the cause of human disease, a total lie. In the first audio, in the origin of the filterable virus as a cause of human disease, we learned that viruses were particles of dead, diseased products that were spun in a centrifuge machine. This machine separated the solids from the liquids. The solids were placed under the electron microscope, which only sees dead objects. It was these dead particles that Dr. Thomas Rivers, the director of the Rockefeller Drug Company and the head of the virology department of the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, sold the idea to the medical profession that filterable viruses were the cause of human disease. Now you will learn on this audio how the American public in the 1950s were miseducated and lied to by the popular magazines, and how the magazine companies and the American public were lied to by these shysters who call themselves virologists. These are the quotes. I will try to refrain from any personal comments, as my objective is to give you the facts in the selling of the filterable virus as a cause of human disease. Harper's Magazine, 1951. The title is Those Virus Diseases. Sooner or later, this child and his younger sister will be infected with the virus of poliomyelitis. Comment. This statement implies that everyone carries or will be infected with the polio virus. Back to the quotes. Unlike bacteria, viruses are particles within cells. Since they aren't visible with the ordinary microscope, it has required the modern electron microscope to confirm they exist. The virus exerts its lethal effect by entering the cell and diverting its life processes to the production of more virus. Considerable controversy still continues as to whether viruses are living things. Among the commonest virus diseases of man are measles, mumps, shingles, the common cold, polio, smallpox, and rabies. The virus enters the nervous system directly without circulating into the bloodstream. Immunity against any given virus disease can be acquired by vaccination, that is, of the introduction of the agent itself. Harper's Magazine, April 1951. Polio is a virus which thrives on human association. Quick Magazine, July 28, 1952. The title, We're Licking Polio. More viruses could be grown for use in a future vaccine. It would form antibodies which would then check the viruses. Polio viruses invade the blood before destroying nerve cells. Scientists believe that the virus of polio spreads from person to person. Newsweek Magazine, November 23, 1953. There is an advertisement on the page before the article. A company is selling electron microscopes. They show a picture of viruses that they say causes influenza. This flu virus is said to be magnified 70,000 times. The ad says these particles of the flu virus cause the flu. The reader is obviously being conditioned and set up to believe the story on the next page about viruses being the cause of human disease. Quote, the Salk vaccine is made of killed or inactivated virus. The killed virus is still strong enough to manufacture the mysterious agents called antibodies. Word came from two groups of scientists that the elusive polio virus has at last been isolated and photographed. The spherically shaped virus is so small, it is 1/1,000,000th of an inch in diameter. Life Magazine, February 22, 1954. They are talking about not finding germs in disease. Then they state in 1892 a Russian named Ivanovsky showed the reason. The infectious material was so small that it passed through the finest laboratory filters. So small, even when it could be isolated, they could not be seen because it lay beyond the power of the strongest microscope. Those infectious agents were called filterable viruses and in time shortened to simply viruses. So here's a thought. Do you remember the specific antibody theory? If the virus was invisible, how would they know a polio antibody from a measles antibody from any other type of antibody? Think about that. Quote, says Dr. John Colmer used diluted poliovirus secured from the ground-up spinal cord of monkeys. In talking about a disease, the writer says it was caused by a virus which no one had seen. When John Enders was asked how he grew polioviruses, Enders said he grew polioviruses because he tried hard. Really. And Dr. Rivers, answering the same question, said, Enders is a very stubborn man. Time magazine, March 29, 1954. Bit by bit, it became clear that polio is caused by a virus that is too small to be seen by any pre-electronic microscope. Parents magazine, July 1st, 1954. Reaching out to parents, these guys didn't miss a trick. This article says the information came from the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis and a number of virus factories. Talk about walking into the wolf's den. Quote, the tiny viruses which cause polio were discovered by Karl Landsteiner back in 1909. They neglect, of course, to mention the barbaric act he committed in his diabolical experiment. In 1910, Dr. Simon Flexner announced that when polio viruses were injected into monkeys, they died of polio. Fails to mention his barbaric and diabolical experiment also. Polio viruses usually enter the human body through the mouth and leave in the stools. Newsweek, April 25, 1955. The discovery by Karl Landsteiner only 46 years ago that a virus caused polio. No mention of his method. Dr. John Enders said the virus could be grown. Dr. David Bodine said he found virus in the bloodstream before it attacked the nervous system. Consumer Reports, March 19, 1956. It must be remembered that Salk vaccine does not prevent the polio virus from invading the body, but it does help prevent the virus causing paralysis or injury to the nervous system. There is nothing mysterious about the way the Salk vaccine works. Polio is caused by a virus. Wisdom, the magazine of knowledge for all America, August 1956. It was known that a child who had recovered from polio was apt to be immune, but there were instances of the same person having the disease twice. It was known that the cause of the disease was a virus. And it shows a picture of a polio virus magnified 180,000 times, fails to mention the electron microscope only seeing dead things. Quote, scientists were not sure how the virus enters the body. Fighting disease like polio sounds simpler than it was. Scientists know that was caused by a virus. Pageant Magazine, March 1958. On the cover, a sure cure for all virus diseases. The polio virus attacks the central nervous system. In 1955, Dr. Robert Hobner of the National Institutes of Health remarked that he would not hesitate to suspect viruses in any disease of the mysterious origin. He reported that viruses have been found attacking the heart, liver, and kidneys. And then they mentioned the source, Martinez Bejernek, and his tobacco plant. Saturday Evening Post, September 26, 1959. On the cover, the doctor's pursuit of virus killers. The headline of the story, Hunting the Invisible Killers. Subheadline, here's a complete authoritative report on modern medicines. Fascinating search for the villains that cause a majority of mankind's illnesses. The elusive submicroscopic viruses. There's a half-page picture of a polio ward, shows two kids, and the caption says the two young patients contracted the viral disease and has now received the Salk shots. Yeah, think about that. Story opens with a statement that viruses cause more sickness than any other class of parasites. Of course, at least parasites exist, they're real. Viruses cause 700 million illnesses a year: measles, mumps, chickenpox, the common cold, influenza. Says the proof is overwhelming that viruses can cause all types of malignant tumors in mice, rabbits, and hamsters. Sure they can in the laboratory. Refers to the foundation of Martinez-Bejernik as the founder of the filterable virus. They do tell you the truth, they just don't tell you all of it. Brings up the first look at viruses through the new electron microscope, which was done in the 1930s, by the way. The writer admits polio and hepatitis increased in 1958 and 1959 despite previous vaccinations. And here comes the real reason for all these lies. It closes the story by saying, our best hope of protecting ourselves against the viruses is with vaccines. Saturday Evening Post, October 3rd, 1959, headed, Hunting the Invisible Virus Killers, Taming a Dreaded Virus. Viruses can cause all manner of distress, from warts to colds to even some cancers. Again refers and references Martinez-Bejernik as discovering the filterable virus in 1898. Says the breakthrough came in tissue culture and hatching eggs as the virus host. This is their trick. It's the embryo that's alive and not any virus, as you now know. Saturday Evening Post, October 10, 1959. Headline, Hunting the Invisible Killer. Subtitle, How Teams of Virologists Are Uncovering Some Startling Secrets About Infectious Diseases, including that most baffling affliction of all, the common cold. Shows a picture of Dr. Alphonse Dochez. Says in 1930, he became the first to succeed in making an animal, a chimpanzee, catch a cold. So you know I had to look this doctor up. And here is the real story, and more proof of just how the American people were lied to in the 1950s. Here's from Dr. Alphonse's report. He says a cold is caused by a filterable virus. The doctor explains his experiment. Hey, you ready? I hope you're not eating anything right now. Because nasal discharge washings are prepared from a human being suffering from an acute cold. The washings are quickly passed through a filter in order to be removed of all visible bacteria. The filtered material is then inoculated intranasal into a chimpanzee. Within 48 hours, the animal begins to show symptoms of the common cold. In order to test further the belief that the common cold is caused by filterable virus, human volunteers were next employed for the experiment. The material for inoculation was obtained and treated in the same way as for chimpanzees. Folks, this is the exact same experiments that Dr. Salk and Dr. Thomas Francis did during World War II to make their flu vaccine out of nasal discharge. You know, they ought to call this thing the snot shot. Dr. Alphonse then says, are you ready? Our practical aim in this investigation of the common cold has been to explore the feasibility of the development of a successful method of, you guessed it, immunization. And there you have it. The writer then brings up the name of Dr. Thomas Francis. This was Jonas Salk's teacher in the 1940s. During World War II, Francis taught Salk how to use the centrifuge machine to make the flu vaccine out of nasal discharge. Now you know where they got the idea from in the first place. Time magazine, November 17, 1961. A picture of our chief deceiver, John Enders, is on the cover of the magazine. The caption says, Medicine Gains on Viruses, the Ultimate Parasite. The writer opens up and says, viruses are born in the air and water. He then says viruses are dead, but they find their targets. He calls them virus particles. Now you know why they are simply particles filtered or centrifuged products of disease. That's what they are a part of. Says viruses attacked. Says viruses kill millions of people around the world every year. Here is a sliver of truth. John Enders says he checks virus damage to cells in tissue cultures. This is a slick admission on his part that no virus was seen, just damage to the cells, which was destroyed or damaged because of the poison that he injected into the tissue culture. And that is how this trick is played. Again, the half-truth emerges. Enders refers to Martinez-Bejernik naming the virus a filterable virus. The writer also says Peyton Roos in 1910 proved that a filterable virus is a cause of cancer in chickens. This is how they lie to you, folks. They neglect to mention that Roos ground up and filtered a cancerous part of the diseased chicken. This virus poison was injected into a healthy chicken. Life magazine, February the 8th, 1963, shows a picture of Salk. Says Salk inspects a sample of the polio virus growing in tissue culture. And the band plays on. Oh, by the way, John Enders' reward for growing the polio virus, his reward, he was given credit for making the measles vaccine in 1963. And they all lived happily ever after in the Polio Hall of Fame, which should be torn down and renamed the Polio Hall of Shame. And that's how the selling of a filterable virus as the cause of human disease was sold to the American public. Just like the so-called AIDS virus deception, the deceivers spoon-fed the information to the media. The media never investigated. They did nothing. They just wrote down what they were told to write down like good little boys and girls, and passes this stuff off as facts. And they leave out the most important facts, and now you know how it works. They just leave out the truth. My next audio will give you quotes from Time magazine and others as to what really happened with the 1955 Salk vaccine massacre that killed 10 kids and paralyzed 200 more and ruined the lives of thousands. Again, you can contact me at jimokelley@yahoo.com. Thank you once again, and please pass this information on to as many people as you can.
This stuff blows my mind. I wrote this book in 2010. I've revised it many times. I just had this published on Amazon. You can go to Jim Dandy O'Kelly's books on Amazon and see what books I put together. You know, they had that COVID guy, I forget which politician it was, who said, just get the damn vaccine. Well, I'm tired, so I'm going to tell you this. Just get the damn book. Dandy out.